Hello and welcome to Monmouth in Focus, a program about the services and functions of Monmouth County government. I'm your host, Cynthia Scott, and joining me today is Monmouth County Clerk Christine Hanlon. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Christine, your office issues passports. Very busy office when it comes to passports. Your office in Freehold as well as Neptune.
Yes.
And now, obviously, we know that we need to have passports when we travel internationally, but you also do need them to travel domestically as well.
Someday soon.
Someday soon.
Yes.
If you don't have one, then you need the federal real identification card as well.
Yes.
Let's talk a little bit about that. That's issued by the federal government, obviously, but I would imagine the passport and the card go hand in hand. So let's kind of talk a little bit about that.
Well, the Federal Real ID Act was a law passed by Congress right after the September 11th terror attacks to sort of tighten up identification requirements throughout the country because states had different requirements for driver's license and driver's licenses and identification cards.
Right.
So when the law was passed, there were certain criteria that are now required for each state's driver's license and non-driver identification cards.
Right.
And the deadline for all states to be in compliance with this Real ID Act is basically October 1st, 2020.
2020, okay.
So many states have come, because it's been many years now that this law has been in effect, and states have had many years to come into compliance with the law. So over the years, different states at different times corrected their driver's license requirements and created what's called a Real ID compliant license. New Jersey is now coming into compliance with this Federal Real ID Act, and they have formulated their criteria for issuance of these Real ID compliant licenses in New Jersey.
Okay.
The important thing, though, is that if you have a passport already, that is a Real ID compliant piece of identification.
Right.
So prior to the implementation or the final implementation of the Real ID Act, you did not need a Real ID compliant identification card to fly domestically.
Right.
You needed a passport to travel overseas, or a passport card to travel to another country by land, but you didn't need that for domestic travel. But now, because of this law, you will need to have either a passport or a Real ID compliant identification card, even to fly domestically.
Okay. So
and also to enter certain federal buildings.
Interesting. So, correct me if I'm wrong, when you go for a new license, can that license become your federal ID card as well if they change it and make it compliant, or is it two separate cards, your driver's license and the federal ID card?
Well, your driver's license will become the the compliant ID card, but you have to go through the procedure to get that special driver's license.
Gotcha.
Right. So as I said, if you have a passport, you don't necessarily have to do this. Because if you want to travel domestically after October 1st, 2020, or starting October 1st, 2020, you could show, the driver's license that you have and your passport, and then you'd be fine.
Okay.
Okay. But if you don't have a passport, in order to travel domestically by air or to enter certain federal buildings, you will have to have gotten this Real ID compliant ID card. And New Jersey is, still issuing the general, regular, non-compliant ID cards, or you can opt to get the Real ID compliant ID card. And the requirements are more stringent to get the Real ID compliant card.
Points-wise.
So points-wise. So some people may opt not to get it because you don't have to get it.
Right.
So right now, people are either opting to just, stick with their passport or to sort of upgrade their driver's license that they currently have in New Jersey to get a Real ID compliant driver's license. So New Jersey is starting to implement this program. You have to make an appointment with the Motor Vehicle Commission to go in and get this new Real ID compliant driver's license. There are 3 additional identification requirements. Everybody knows in New Jersey about the 6 points that you need to get a driver's license. To get a Real ID compliant license, which will have like a little star on it so that people know that it is a Real ID compliant card, you have to have an additional 3 pieces of identification. So it's an additional 2 pieces of proof of residence and 1 proof of your social security number. And with all that, then you can get a Real ID compliant driver's license.
Okay, gotcha. Understood. Actually, you make it very understandable. It could be a little confusing, but it makes sense.
Yes.
It makes sense. So hopefully it makes sense to our viewers as well. Lots of changes. You did mention federal buildings. So for somebody that visits federal buildings a lot, federal attorneys, people, judges, obviously, clerks, it would probably behoove them to get this ID
to get
card.
Right, because there are certain federal buildings that you should go onto the Real ID NJ website to get some more information. But if you are a person who's constantly in federal buildings, it is a good idea to get the Real ID compliant license.
Right.
But I have to say most people who will be affected by this are people who fly domestically.
Yeah.
I mean, think about all of the air travelers in New Jersey who go to get
Florida.
on a plane to go anywhere.
Yeah.
Business travelers. You're going to need to either upgrade to the Real ID compliant ID or
carry your passport all the time.
Carry your passport to get on domestic airfare. So I know the Motor Vehicle Commission is trying to get the word out to people because they're, it's about a year people have about a year in New Jersey to take care of this because there will be no more extensions. There have been many, many extensions for states to comply with the Federal Real ID Act, but this is the last extension. And as of October 1st, 2020, there will be no more extensions, and everybody has to be in compliance with this law.
Right. So very important to get the word out, and thank you so much for doing that today here on Monmouth in Focus. Christine, always good to see you as well.
You too, Cynthia.
And that is all the time we have for this segment of Monmouth in Focus. And of course, you can always visit www.visitmonmouth.com for more information. I'm Cynthia Scott. Have a great day, everyone.